Kyler Murray is big enough. This is Tom Brady. He's not just going to retire. Whitey, big fan of the show. Appreciate Brian Murphy to my left, making sure everything's crispy, buttery. James Harden is systematically ruining the game of basketball. He's the most overrated player. And there you are, the Chicago Bears with a championship defense. And I'm sure Dancing with the Stars is happy to have Antonio back. If you thought you were going to get Zion, that's your bad.
And now listening to Open Season, your host, Billy Allen.
Good evening. Welcome everybody to Open Season. I'm your host, Billy Allen, joined as always by Frankie Bradica. Week 1 in the NFL has come and gone. Devontae Adams and Lamar Jackson started off hot. TJ Watt and Dak Prescott are already dealing with injuries. Saquon came back from injury in a big way. Christian McCaffrey's back. Carson Wentz threw for 4 touchdowns, and Michael Thomas found himself in the end zone a couple times. The Patriots are 0-1. The Giants are 1-0. Commanders are 1-0. Definitely some surprises around the NFL. What were your biggest takeaways? Now, Russell Wilson, he had a revenge game. He lost it. Baker Mayfield had a revenge game. He lost it. Patriots are going against the Steelers this weekend. They're favored by 1 point. But to start things out, the Patriots really had a very uncharacteristic week for them. People have been talking about this all through training camp, just the coordinators and not being able to get things going on offense really struggling, offensive line. You're really having an approach where you're kind of bringing up the coordinators before you can even kind of bring up Mac Jones. Mac Jones, who should be taking a big step in year 2. Honestly looking like he was facing a little bit of a trouble. Didn't look as well as he did last year, honestly, in the first game. So here he is 18 games into his career, not looking as strong as he did in game 1. And that's all because of all the ruckus and things going on in Foxborough. Dan Orlovsky spoke a little bit about that, and let's just play a quick clip from him this morning.
Takeaway from this game is I don't know the last time I saw an organization that is that as good as New England look so unprepared for a football game. Offensively, there's no plan. Looks like there's no preparation. They ran 3 different plays. Okay, so I run this first play. They ran those things 4 different times. So this play, I ran it 4 times. Then this play, I ran it 4 times. Then this play, I ran it 4 times. All within the first 50 snaps of the game. They ran the same play 3 times in the first 11 offensive snaps. Like that's
not good.
The quarterback's getting to the line of scrimmage. The spacing of their pass game. There's a play that there's a swing route to the back, and there's shallow cross and sit, all within like 7 yards of each other. That's teams that we make fun usually offensively. That's not an organization that's run that way. The quarterback has absolutely no answers with protection. He's getting his head beat in because nobody's on the same play. It was in the preseason. Now, I don't know. I'm shocked that the Patriots look this dysfunctional on offense.
That was so
Yeah, and Frank, we'll bring you in here on this, but we heard so much about it in the preseason and everything like that, about just the Patriots' offensive struggles. We saw that finally come to fruition, and honestly, it probably looked worse, than we were thinking. What was your biggest takeaway from week 1 in the Patriots offense and the Patriots as a whole against Miami?
I think my biggest takeaway is that there's got to be something bigger at play, whether or not I know what it is or not. I'm beginning to think that Bill Belichick no longer wants to catch Shula. I can't, in good conscience, have watched Bill do what he's done and think that he's this bad a coach or this bad a leader. The only thing that seems to make sense is be damned with the record. I need to coach up Judge, Patricia, and my sons because I'm only going to be here for so many years. If he is still trying to win and thinks this is going to work, this is the dumbest version of Bill Belichick we've ever seen. And I just can't believe that he's taken that big a leap.
I completely agree with you, Frank. And I can't believe that it is it's basically a bigger priority to bring along Matt Patricia and Joe Judge than it is to do the best thing in interest for Mac Jones. We've heard it for 20 plus years, always do what's in the best interest of the football team. How is it in the best interest to change over the entire offense to give this guy a different coordinator. Now, I understand that McDaniels was going to leave, but that doesn't mean that you don't have to bring in someone who isn't qualified. And to give the reins to Mac Jones, I mean, there's conversations in Foxborough that, Mac Jones is not thrilled with the Patriot experience so far, and I feel like you could see it. You could see this in some of the, like he got injured the other day. He didn't talk to the media. I mean, I feel like they kind of know he might he's going to spurt off about getting hit and stuff like that. And I just feel like they are doing everything that you can to possibly upset what should be the quarterback of the future for them. You took him 15th overall. You don't want to give this guy any weapons, protection, anything.
Much like trade requests, I just think you should have to have a little bit more cachet before you get to even be angry. Like, there are plenty of players who went to franchises that ruined their career. If you're Mac Jones, I have news for you. Last year was about as good a rookie season as you were going to have anywhere on this planet. So you do not get to go into year 2 and say, I don't like this. How many quarterbacks in the first 3-4 years of their rookie contract, almost every year of their rookie contract before they get traded or released, they have a new offensive coordinator, a new head coach? This happened to Sam Darnold every year. Mark Sanchez, not every year in terms of the head coach, but the offensive coordinator. Worst quarterbacks have had the same amount of instability, and nobody has said, oh, I wonder if they're upset, because F off and play.
Look, if I thought he was being a wuss, though, I would be the first one to admit it. I mean, wouldn't you be? Obviously, guys like Peyton Manning and stuff, and when you're drafted 15th overall, you're going to have to overcome certain things to get there, right? Like, if you're drafted 15th, we're counting that you could be a good quarterback regardless of what you have. But it's certainly not helping him what they're going through. And you and I talked about this before the show. The Patriots have $90 million going to Aguilar, Smith, and Bourne. And it's just like, it's not that they're not spending the money. They're spending money. They're just not getting the results. You know that Kraft is a business-oriented guy. I mean, he's looking at this. You're spending $90 million to this position, and you really can't get much of anything out of it. I just feel like we heard Kraft talk about things in the beginning of the season too, where we haven't made the playoffs in so many years. Do you think that's all just kind of smoke that he's saying to, kind of make it seem like to the fans that he's putting pressure on Belichick? Do you think that pressure actually exists? Because I really don't think that pressure actually exists from Kraft. I mean, is Belichick under any realistic pressure to lose his job? I feel like Belichick could completely throw this year, and based off what he's done, he's not in any position to lose his job. Do you think that if he were to do like 6-12 or 6-11 or something like that this year, that there's any jeopardy of him moving on?
I know Kraft, until he had a measure of success, and I mean years, a decade pretty much of success, he was still mourning the fact that he let Parcells walk. I know it hurts him that his adopted son has won a Super Bowl somewhere else. While it very well may be the right decision, and he may very well want to get rid of Bill, I don't think he has it as a closing it on 80-year-old man to get rid of all of the best people that he's ever trusted or had work for him. I just don't see it. And the pressure should be there, but Billy, it's not. And when it is there, he won't be taking jabs through the media. When there's legitimate pressure there, we won't know.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like, as much as I feel like some people, so I do think that this brings something. It's almost like Belichick going at this pace. It's going to take him. I mean, so if he were to win like 9 games a year, it would take him like 3 years to get the Shula. But at this pace, it's going to take him like an extra year. I mean, is he going to go to another franchise? I'm just trying to understand what's going to happen here. I can't understand why he is trying to bring on these coaches and is more concerned. Like, it's like guys like Bourne are getting upset. Bourne, he played in 2 plays the other day. He's arguably their best offensive weapon, and the Patriots aren't in a position where they can mortgage their offensive weapons. I mean, it's like, I don't care what this guy might have said to Patricia or Belichick or anyone to piss them off. The guy is catching 800 yards in this offense, which isn't easy to do. He's got to be out there.
Bourne had what is probably going to be his best year ever last year, and I didn't expect him to duplicate that, but I sure expected him to be on the field. I sure expected him to be a part of route schemes, route combinations, his ability to spread the field. He's got talents. I've never been a big Kendrick Bourne guy. I really couldn't stand him when he was in the 49ers. I thought he's Marquez Valdez-Scantling. He's got one 52-yard touchdown and then just goose eggs on week. But I think he was great here. I think he was great in the locker room. And I think the fact that he can take off a defense and get 800 yards made guys like Aguilar, who's not as good, a lot more open. I mean, I think he made his job a lot easier. We always talk about this. Having a stud or a legit number one puts everybody else's role into easier perspective, makes it much easier.
Exactly. I mean, the Patriots just aren't in a position where they can make things harder on offense right now. I mean, they only scored 7 points in this game. And there was only like one team this week that didn't score. I mean, this is a league where you've got to be scoring 21 points at least in order to get victories. I mean, there was only one other team that didn't score a touchdown. I mean, I think Dallas was the only team this week that wasn't able to score a touchdown. And pardon me, I think there was some type of stat where it was like the last 106 games with Brady, they only scored like 21 points or less, like 20 times. And in the last 38 games or so, without Brady, they've scored 21 or less, like 22 times or so. It's been like over half. And so they're just not keeping pace. And so it's one thing if you were leading the offense, or if you were like leading in points or whatever, you want to take guys away or punish guys. But the Patriots are not in a position where Bourne cannot get snaps. It's like you could clearly see the difference when he came in the game. He catches that 140-yard. That was the only life the offense had in it all day, and he's only getting 2 plays. It's just infuriating.
It's very Bill right now.
Yeah. And in a time where you can't really afford to do that. And I feel like Bill has seemed a little bit different himself. I mean, you listen to some of his comments post-game. He's kind of like, we were play away here, play away there. You typically don't hear that kind of stuff from Bill. It's more like, we just didn't do what we needed to do. Or it's almost like you're hearing excuse making for this team.
Well, he knows that the more he bloviates, the less that anybody can A, make sense of it, and B, pin it on any other one person. If he says we have to do a better job, then the media is going to go right back to, well, the people who need to do a better job are as follows. If he just says, oh, we're a play away here, there's a columnist who will take that and just write that in a story. There are fans who will take that and say, oh, we were just a play away. We were not a play away. We were dozens of plays away. We are personnel, coaches, and plays away from winning any games.
Yeah, and Tua is 4-0 against the Patriots. I mean, if Tua only played against the Patriots, he'd be a Pro Bowler at this point. I mean, he's 4-0 against the Patriots in his last 4. And no quarterback has really had this mark of success over the Patriots.
If they don't
renew John Elway.
If they don't renew his 5th-year option, he has one more year next year, correct, Tua?
I believe so.
I think there's a very good chance that he gets to 5-0, 7-0 before he leaves the Dolphins.
That would be, I mean, this honestly might be Belichick's biggest blemish on his career right now, that Tua has such an incredible record against him. I can't think of.
The drive to nowhere is the most frustrating thing I've ever seen as a Patriots fan. And then losing it to the helmet catch. That drive to nowhere against a not good enough to beat us Jets team. They were a good team. I'm not good enough to beat us Jets team. We let Mark Sanchez and Braylon Edwards come into Foxborough and beat us. That's the biggest blemish on Bill's mark to me. Not Cleveland, not getting rid of Brady. The fact that you let Rex Ryan tell you he was going to win, and then he came into your house and beat you when you had Tom Brady and he had Sanchez. There should have been no way that happened. Coughlin's a good coach. That should not have happened to us against the Jets.
Yeah. No, I agree. But I mean, Tua being 4-0 over 4 is pretty big pill to swallow. I mean, it just used to always be like 5 years ago, how much would you have salivated to play a quarterback like Tua with Belichick as your coach, you know?
Look, if I'm every other team in the league, I'm salivating at the idea of facing Bill Belichick right now. I don't care what my quarterback situation is. Because even if we're awful and Bill has my number, they're going to score 10 points.
Now, what do you think about Tua at this point in his career? It's almost like I feel like he's not, nobody's sold on him or anything, but it feels like maybe he's just learning to play a little bit better within that offense. Like, I'm not a big Tua guy, but it's like he's kind of, he's making that offense work to some degree. I'm still not sold on him. I could still probably move on from him just as easy. But it seems like he is making that offense work a little bit more. I mean, and he was doing a good job of getting Tyreek Hill involved.
Tua
I mean, he probably was better than I would have thought in game one.
He's short left-handed Mariota. That's what Tua is. Tua's fine.
That's a hell of an indictment.
Well, I like Tua more than Mariota, but I don't think that's what the public thinks. So I figured we'll split the difference.
I would say I would take Tua over Mariota, I think, too.
Yeah, I think Tua in his apex can be regular somewhere between 10 and 15. I just don't think he'll ever, he could be a part of the top 10 at 10, but I just don't think he'll ever reach the 1 through 9 type of stratosphere. I just don't see it for him. He's super accurate. He's the type of guy who's very, very smart. If you have a good offense and good weapons, he will produce, but he's small. He's not going to make the defense respect the long ball. He's limited.
Now, moving on to a couple of the big performers, somebody that will make you respect the long ball, Davante Adams for the Las Vegas Raiders. 10 catches for 141 yards. Was that good this weekend? Well, the rest of the receivers on the team had 10 catches for 120 yards. So yeah, Davante Adams is getting a pretty big share of the balls over there. You would think that things are working pretty well so far for them. Now, they didn't get the win, but Davante Adams looked incredible in the first game.
I'm not sure how much better he made them yesterday. I know how much better he'll make I assume I know how much better he'll make them moving forward. But there was a time, and I've told you this, and nobody agrees with me, at the end of Moss and Welker, where for the only time, the first and only time in Brady's career, he had locked on to people, almost pre-snap. I mean, it was the only time in Brady's career he was willing to throw a pick because, I have Moss and Welker. And it kind of felt like that yesterday. Like, I think you need Renfro's always going to be the guy that gets your offense started if your running game can't do it. You need a running game if you're that team because you can't just let people sit on your wide receivers. Carr's not that good. I think Carr's better than most people. He's not just beat any type of defense good, make all of the throws good. About 5 of those in the world every year. But if they can get a running game or a slot receiver to just get the easy yards, to give you the 3rd and 2s, the 2nd and 6s, so that you can just keep the offense on the field, that is when you'll start to see Davante Adams. They need more underneath stuff. They need less, you can't guard this because I'm Davante Adams. And they'll get there. They'll need to balance it out. They force it to him a little bit too much.
I just feel like Davante has no weaknesses really as a wide receiver.
All receivers have a weakness that if they have an ego, you've got to get them the ball.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, kind of to your point, most are going to have that. Anyone good is probably going to feel that way. I mean, even Randy Moss and T.O. and all those guys felt that way. So I couldn't blame Davante for feeling that way. But, God, I mean, that guy is just liquid. Like, put him in there, 100 yards, touchdown, just like every freak. And if he doesn't get the yards, he's getting the touchdowns. Like, if he doesn't go off and get 100-some-odd yards, he'll have, 2 catches for 2 touchdowns. It's just – guy's been the best receiver in the league for the past 3-4 years, I would say, in my mind. And just even some of his releases, I mean, just – it's not just that he's, tall and fast. I mean, the guy can just do everything, really.
He's got very good feet.
Really does. And I love guys that, can win with their feet, that's always impressive, like Antonio Brown or whatever. That's good. Yeah. What?
Keenan.
Yeah, your boy. Well, Keenan, I mean, he's injured too. We're just going to talk about it a little bit, but Dak, TJ Watt, Keenan, it's crazy how Dak gets hurt and that entire Cowboys offense just goes to crap. I mean, everybody was probably taking Cowboys players in their drafts. And now that just turns into complete crap over there. But they do get some pretty good news. I mean, he's only going to be out for 4 weeks. You got to love Jerry Jones. He acts as the GM, the coach, the doctor. He's saying that he's telling you exactly where the break is on the hand. He's telling you that he'll be back in 4 games. I mean, typically you don't want to put a number of games on it. He tells you right there, 4 games. So, I mean, no room for error there. Dak, and no, coming back from this slowly, you got to be back in 4 weeks because Jerry's cleared you for 4 weeks. But them getting some decent news, at least with him only being out for 4 weeks. But God, it just feels like every year in Dallas there's something. It's been Dak injuries the last 2 out of 3 years. Then last year they're somewhat decent, but obviously just crap the bed. It's just. Have we already seen Dak Prescott get his deepest run with this Cowboys team? I mean, what else is there for them?
Number one, the answer to your direct question is yes. But number two, William, if I could be allowed a small moment of hypocrisy, please. Because I am a firm believer in using what can this group of people do with this one person versus without. There's very few chances in sports to get a control versus a variable example. And the Cowboys without Dak are putrid. Cowboys with Dak, division winners. And somehow, I don't think that is any indication that he provides any value, and I think he's extremely overrated, and I can't stand this franchise.
I just feel like they would be just as good going out there and drafting someone in the 3rd or 4th round as they are with Dak. I just can't understand. I feel like it's one of those things where his intangibles, like it's like the stuff you're talking about with Dak are always like, he's a good leader. It's never like you're like his arm strength, his vision. It's like you're always talking about these intangibles, like he's a good guy. I just feel like he's not somebody that's great really in any one area.
I think Trubisky's better than Dak. And I think Trubisky has had a far better career with no weapons than Dak has. Dak has 6 games in his career of no weapons, and it's the worst version of him we've ever seen by a country mile.
Oh, well, his stats without it, when he didn't have Cooper, were nuts. So it was like
when
day and night.
Didn't have Cooper, he was not even an NFL quarterback. Mitch Trubisky made the playoffs twice in Chicago. And I'm not a huge Trubisky guy, but it's an indictment on the Cowboys. They can't get a decent backup. Mitch Trubisky was in Buffalo last year, backing up Josh Allen. You didn't want to bring him to Dallas. Like, I don't understand why they can't get somebody to do what I don't think Dak is doing a whole lot for them. So the idea that they have nobody behind him that can do what he does is truly a flagrant indictment on that whole team and how they run things.
Yeah. Do you think they're going to get creative at all? I heard somebody this morning saying that there's been calls in Dallas to play someone like Cam Newton or Colin Kaepernick. Excuse me. I don't think those things are any bit of remote possibilities, but did they maybe try to take a strong swing at somebody like Jimmy Garoppolo? I mean, it is only 4 games. So if it's me, I'm probably not going to give up much of an asset for that. But do you see them doing anything? I mean, they're Dallas. Do you see them doing anything to bring in another quarterback?
If I'm Dallas, I would trade a conditional 5th and a conditional 7th. The most that those picks could turn into is a 4th and 6th. The worst those will be are 2 7ths. But I would trade those for Tyrod Taylor. Because, again, I don't think Dak is doing anything too impressive. I think if you go ahead and you go get just a marginal quarterback, I think Davis Mills, Gardner Minshew can all do what Dak does. I just don't think he's that good. I don't mean to disrespect the man, but he's bang average. He's a bang average physical player with all these intangibles and mental capability. Then find me another smart guy who can actually throw the ball.
You can't make a Gardner Minshew comment without offense, being intended.
I like Gardner Minshew. I like Gardner Minshew. I probably like him as much as the Eagles like Jalen Hurts. I thought that should have been a competition. Don't get me started on my man Minshew.
Oh. Where is Minshew now?
It's funny you say that after I just called him my boy because I do not remember.
Tight like that. Well, so somebody who's also out is TJ Watt. We'll talk about that in a minute when we talk more so about the Steelers game. But Saquon, talking about injuries and people coming back from injuries. I mean, Saquon almost had 200 all-purpose yards at like 164. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, do you want to take the victory lap, or do you want me to? Which one of us do you want to talk about how right we were?
We both should. I mean, it took us like 4 or 5 years to be right, but eventually.
But my day has come. Our day has come, Billy. Our day has come. Finish with the stats because he did have almost close to 200 all-purpose yards.
Yeah, he had like 164 yards rushing. I mean, just looked like the Saquon that we saw in his first year. Not a lot of hesitation. I felt like at the line of scrimmage the last couple of years, there's been a lot more hesitation, a lot of cloud of smoke and nothing. And just feel like he was running kind of with reckless abandon. And just feeling like he looks really good out there. I mean, it's exciting. I feel like I was talking to Frank and saying that this guy is too much of an all-world talent to not put it all together and have like that 1 year and feel like, I mean, why not this year? What's he, 25?
Still.
Probably going to be the best year of his career. I mean, He's not going to have that many more years left in his prime. I mean, he might even have like 5 more years, but you're really not having that many more chances to.
Including this year, he's got 4 years of his prime left. And I think he will carry a decent prime because he's got so many less miles on his legs. Yes, he's got the 2 injuries, but if you think about it, he's got the same amount of knee injuries as Todd Gurley. And Todd Gurley had a 3-year prime where he was an MVP candidate and led a team to a Super Bowl. So if Barkley can be anything like that, I think he's better than Gurley was. I think Barkley's an unbelievable talent. And yes, I won't say the last couple of years. Last year, before he got hurt, a lot of Lawrence Maroney in there. A lot of East-West. Not a lot of pick a hole and go. A lot of just dancing back there, getting hit and saying it's my Lions' fault. There was a lot of bad Saquon last year. A lot of tentative Saquon last year. I think you hit the nail on the head. This is probably the most decisive Saquon we've seen probably since college.
God, that's all he needs to be, too, is just, I think he, for good reason. I feel like the first couple of years, it was almost like he kind of had to do too much. So he's probably like trying to get the maximum out of his carries. But yeah, he's just got to play, just go with it. And I really loved his attitude after the game. He's just kind of saying, like, just got to keep building on that. Like, he's a professional. He's not like making a world out of this and understands what it takes. I feel like it's taken a couple of years here for him to get going solid, but I think this is, knock on wood, I think Saquon's going to have an enormous year this year.
And just one last thing about because I know we're leaving this topic about the Saquon detractors. Anybody who saw him as a rookie pretty much only could have said, wow, he did that with nothing. As long as I get him a decent quarterback and a decent offensive line, he'll be fine. They never got him the decent quarterback. But what they did do is they did reinvest in their offensive line with draft capital, and they've also reinvested in their perimeter players with draft capital. So now you have Wandelay and you have Kadarius Toney. And even if they're both busts right now, NFL defenses are keeping 2 safeties back. So this is probably the most space Saquon has seen in his entire career. So it's not even like he's ever been bad. He was doing too much because his team sucked.
Yeah.
When nobody had film on him, he was great. This year, the first year he's been healthy at the beginning of a season since his rookie year, he's going to be great.
You just feel like Dayball is the type of creative play caller too, where I feel like that's kind of what he needs also.
I'm not sold on Dayball.
As good as Joe Judge is, he was. So yeah, you had Saquon coming back from injury. You had Michael Thomas coming back from injury, scored 2 touchdowns. First game, he had been off for 20 straight games, hadn't played since 2020. And for him to come back, score a couple touchdowns. I mean, the Saints look pretty good. A lot of people like the Saints this year. You a fan of the Saints?
No.
You see, I've honestly heard a lot of people mention that they could be like a sneaky Super Bowl team this year. That defense, some of the options, that's not any type of pick that I'm going to make. But there are a lot of people I feel like who like the Saints this year.
I will make a bold prediction about the Saints. They will finish second in the NFC South. That is no playoffs. That is my bold prediction. They will win about 6 games. They're fine. They're not great.
Okay.
And for the record, they have a ton of pieces, but I just don't believe Jameis can get you there unless you've got everything else. If Sean Payton were still there, I'd feel better. Sorry. I have very little faith in rookie coaches, even less so when Jameis is their signal caller. I just don't know. Because I think if Jameis came here, I think if Jameis played for Mike Tomlin, I think if he got with Andy Reid or Sean Payton for an extended period of time, I think you would have seen a different Jameis. We've just never seen Jameis with a good coach, and we did last year. And yeah, his passing numbers were low, but it was his best touchdown interception ratio, and it was in a month. So I just feel like that's what he's always been missing, but he went right back to not having that.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. He threw like 18 touchdowns with 3 picks or something like that.
I mean, he was 14 and 3, but I didn't check.
Okay, something like that. Like that.
Yeah.
Well, the Jets are taking receipts, Frank, and I mean that is just concerning. They're going to take a lot of receipts. No, so Saleh today was just like saying that they're going to take receipts, on all the bad things that people are saying about the Jets. I don't know why you would even make a comment like this and put the spotlight on yourself more. I feel like you're looking at the Jets schedule. This is a team that could honestly not have a win going into their bye week. I mean, I feel like Salah is honestly in jeopardy of even lasting beyond this year. Do you want to even make a comment like that? I just don't. I don't think it's very smart for him to make that comment.
Robert Saleh.
It's like all this crap about the receipts. I mean, the Red Sox did this a couple of years ago when everyone said that they sucked at the beginning of the year. They're like, we kept the receipts. It's like, yeah, when you suck, people are going to make comments that you suck, and when you're good, people are going to make comments that you're good. I mean, don't take it personally.
If you keep the receipts, you're supposed to win. We kept the receipts and then lost. Like we kept the receipts and lost. And for the record, I don't have a problem with Saleh doing this, because I think it's who he is. Not in the same way that this is who Tomlin and Dan Campbell are, but I think that if Saleh saying that to the media, it's because he said it to the locker room. And whether or not we believe they've got the capability to do that, NFL teams have been galvanized by less. Us against the world is incredibly played out, but if 52 guys buy into anything, all of them, you're going to win more than you should.
I just don't get how you get anybody to buy into having Joe Flacco as your quarterback. I mean, like, there must be no buy-in over there. Like, if you're a player, you're like, huh?
It's got to be him. If you're Robert Saleh, the buy-in has to be in you.
But it's just like, how, if you're the players, like, how do you get behind Joe Flacco playing? And he throws like 59 passes the other day, and it was just completely awful. It's just like he can't move. He gets sacked every other play. Why don't they put in White?
Because who on that offense gets to say anything to Joe Flacco? Joe Flacco's done something in his career that none of them will ever do. They should really listen to Joe Flacco. And I am not about to sit here and become a bandwagon fan of Joe Flacco. Never liked the guy. But he's done more with his NFL career than these guys can hope to. So when you say, how do they buy into Joe Flacco? Even if they're looking at an awful, slow Joe Flacco, that is more than what White or Wilson has done. And if you are letting him get sacked, it's not because he's immobile. It's because your offensive line has been bad for 4 years.
Dude, he cannot move. Like, there are guys that are coming after him that run like a 5.0 forward, and like he doesn't even move. I don't know. It's just like,
who's open, Billy? Who's open and who's blocking for him? Because Flacco's not going to win you very many games. But if
why are you making excuses for Flacco?
Because he is what he is. If you let him be a statue, he can still hit. He can still hit water bottles off of trash cans. If he had open receivers in time to hit him, he'd hit him. The guy's still got a cannon. He's slow, and he never was able to read defenses. But if you give him guys that are open or guys that can get separation and let him rifle it in there, he's fine.
I just feel like if I was on that team, I'd be like, we have no chance to win a game where Joe Flacco is starting. We at least have a chance if Mike White is starting.
If you feel that way as an NFL player, you're a loser. And if you're in the NFL and you don't think that you yourself can make a difference, you're in the wrong sport. You're in the wrong sport. If you're not confident, go swim. Go be surrounded by like your Olympic team and your individual sport. If you play a team game but don't secretly think you're the most important reason for why your team is winning, you're playing the wrong game, buddy. This is how everybody feels. They should be thinking, you know what Mekhi Becton should be thinking? I don't care who's back there because nobody's getting past me. You know what Elijah Moore should be thinking? I don't care if the water boy's throwing the ball. I will throw it to myself. Like
Mekhi Becton should be thinking, I hope I can stay healthy for more than 2 games.
Sure, whatever it is, nobody should be looking at a different player in their locker room and thinking we're not going to win with this guy.
Look, Frank, you know what I'm saying. Whether they should be thinking that or not, like if you're out there in the backyard and you have all these different quarterbacks and Joe Flacco is yours, like you're not thinking that, regardless of what your mentality has to be, you're like, we're out if Joe Flacco is our quarterback.
4-3 speed. If I've got an offensive line, I would love Joe Flacco. I could limit my route tree by like a dozen routes. I'm just going this way. Corey Smith made an entire career of going in one direction because Flacco's got a cannon.
Yeah, that was also like 12 years ago.
Sure, but Flacco, again, as somebody who was never athletic and never could read defenses, hasn't gotten worse at anything that he was bad at. You know what I'm saying? He can still throw the ball. And again, what did it take for Flacco to win the first time? Bolden and Smith and Rice and a Pro Bowl offensive line and one of the best defenses in the league. So if the Jets can provide Flacco, one of the best defenses in the league, and
the Jets have none of that, so why should they feel confident is what I'm saying.
Because why would you feel more confident in Mike White? Because he can run around and throw picks?
Yes.
No.
Yes. Yes. Well, somebody that does want to be the biggest reason why their team is winning is definitely Russell Wilson, who always seems to have these coaches make, just overthinking in terms of when they're on the goal line with him. Whether it's the Marshawn Lynch play or some of last night. You give up 5 picks and you give the what everybody calls it today is the bag to Russell Wilson. You give him $250 million and you kick a 64-yard field goal at the end of that game. And you had another play. You have Russell Wilson so that he can get you that 10 yards closer and so that he could go for it on that 4th down. And I think this was longer than the guy's longest field goal that he had ever made. As far as I'm concerned, I'm not going for a field goal that's longer than what this guy has ever made at the end of the game to win when I've got Russell Wilson. What did you think about the playmaking and how all that went down and how Russell Wilson should be feeling after game 1? Because definitely a bittersweet ending for a game that everybody thought was going to be a big revenge game for him.
I'm just trying to figure it out. So Pete Carroll's one of the oldest coaches in the league. Nathaniel Hackett, one of the youngest coaches in the league. One guy is coaching offense. One guy is coaching defense. They have almost nothing in common. The only thing they have in common is if they have Russell Wilson in a position to win them the game, they won't let him. They just won't let him. Pete's going to call a play that he's overused all year, and this guy's not even going to let him throw the ball. I don't understand at all what's going on here. You fumbled it. Each running back fumbles it inside of the 3-yard line. What is going on with that team? I at first said I don't want to buy into the hype, but then I love Surtain and I love a couple of their. I like Chubb, and I was like, no, they'll be fine. They looked disorganized and disinterested. They looked like a team that thought they were going to roll out and win. Why? They're not that good. And they may not be that good, but the fact that they carried that mentality into a game, horrible. The play calling, horrible. That field goal, just make it make sense. If you were going to kick that field goal, couldn't you have spiked it on the play before, then ran it to get him on the better hash and then called the timeout? If that was your decision right away, then there was even a better way to make that decision. I just didn't get it. I would love for it to be explained to me. Didn't make any sense.
Frank, we're going to do overreactions later, but one of the bigger reactions from this was people, exactly what you're saying, is people kind of changing their expectations for the Broncos after that game. A lot of people had them maybe winning 10, 12 games. And then I've heard people kind of adjusting that and saying maybe the Broncos will take a step back. How confident do you feel about them moving forward this year? Do you still see them as a 10, 12 game winner? Do you think that there will be struggles for them?
Defensively. Offensively, they have enough to where even when they struggle, they'll probably still score. They've got 2 good running backs, 4 good receivers, a good core. They'll be fine on offense. It won't always look pretty, but they'll be fine on offense. They are, not only do they have enough playmakers, they're also very multiple. Hamler and Judy are great from screens. Sutton is great at one-on-one. You got Gordon and Williams who can both catch and run between the tackles. And Russell Wilson can run and throw. They're multiple enough. Even when they're bad.
I'm happy for the Seahawks. They found their quarterback of the future in Geno Smith. Now they don't have to worry about investing any assets into the quarterback position and can just focus on building.
They've also got he's their quarterback to take them to the chip. The quarterback of the future is Drew Lock. They've got one of the better and more competent quarterback rooms in the league.
So how long is Geno Smith going to start? Is he going to start this whole year, you think, now?
No, but I would like to say that for a young man who everybody hated and thought was overdrafted, who made a bet with a teammate, lost it, didn't pay him, and got punched in his face at his locker, since that moment, he has pretty much been, from all reports, a great teammate, on time, a great professional. I'm very, very happy as a non-Geno Smith fan to objectively look at the improvements this guy has made as an individual in terms of how he's perceived by his peers, to work that hard and then get a shot. I'm not even sure that he deserved it over Drew Lock, but I love that they gave it to him because he earned it.
Yeah. No, it is cool when you see people kind of take their medicine and go back and, do what it takes. Because I remember the first time he came to the NFL, the report was like he was on his cell phone in those meetings, meeting with teams. I mean, you talked about it. He got punched in his face, and then people were on the guy's side who punched him in the face rather than him.
You're the quarterback and nobody's on your side when you get punched in the face in the locker room? That should ring so many bells.
Yeah. Yeah, but he did. So you think they'll eventually start Drew Lock over him this year?
I'm not convinced that we haven't seen like another shoe to drop. If the Steelers end up starting Pickett, I have no doubt that they'll be willing to shop Trubisky. I think Garoppolo is always his name is always going to get brought up. Yeah, I think I don't think he'll last all year. I have less faith that Drew Lock will take the job than I do that Geno Smith will start all 16 games. I don't think Drew Lock is any good.
But Flacco, you do.
Well, no. I never thought Flacco was good, but then he did 4 straight games what Montana did in 4 straight Super Bowls. And them is just the facts.
Okay. Well, let's talk real quick. The Patriots are going to play the Steelers. They're going to be without TJ Watt. They were potentially going to be without Najee Harris, but he's going to play. The Steelers D and Minkah Fitzpatrick absolutely balled out in the first game. 4 picks. Minkah Fitzpatrick blocked a kick. I mean, that's probably the best game I've ever seen him play. What's that?
Didn't he return one too?
Did he return? He returned one for a touchdown, or?
I thought so, but I was also in Orlando very, very drunk.
All right, great. Well, surprisingly, the Patriots are favored versus the Steelers in this one. What do you think about just how Vegas is leaning on the Patriots, this kind of being like maybe a more get-right game for the Patriots? Basically, what's your take on them being favored? Do you think they'll win this game?
I think the Patriots will not win this game at all. I don't know why the line is worded. I don't know how you look at the Patriots and favor them over anybody. Like I said this last week on the show, our biggest advantage to win should have been week 1. The Dolphins coach had never coached an NFL game. New offensive and defensive coordinators. A whole bunch of new players on both sides of the ball to work in. Like this should have been the Dolphins' worst game, and they won going away. So no, I don't think that the Steelers, who are have more consistency, are going to show up and lose.
Well, Whitey, looks like you joined just as we're talking about the Steelers. The Patriots are favored by a point in this one, and the Steelers have a pretty impressive win against the Bengals in Week 1. What are you expecting in this matchup, White?
Do you realize this is the first time in 20 years Patriots fans are expecting to lose to the Steelers?
Not true. I expected it many times, but you guys refuse to get out of zone defense. You guys have had the better team a lot in the last decade. Your coaches just wouldn't help you.
Oh, well,
I think in 01 in the AFC playoffs, I think a lot of people thought that they were going to lose.
Well, Ben's rookie year when you guys beat us in Heinz Field, when we were like 15-1 that year, I think that was like the last time we were favorites against the Pats.
I do remember that.
I don't understand how the Patriots are favorites though. Like clearly you guys think we're going to win. This is the first time in 20 years I think the Steelers are going to win against the Patriots. I mean, TJ Watt's a huge loss, and I have many metrics that'll back that up, but we're not playing Tom Brady. We're playing Mac Jones and without an offensive coordinator.
I agree with you, Whitey. I think the Steelers are in a good position to win this game. I mean, I did feel like the Miami game was going to probably be an easier game for them than the Steelers game. So, I mean, I'm pretty surprised that they're favored here. I thought they were probably going to win maybe like 1 out of the first 4 games. Maybe is this the one that they win out of the first 4? Maybe.
Vegas is waiting. That's what the line is. Vegas is waiting on Bill. Vegas hasn't yet decided that the Patriots have fully fallen back to the rest of the pack. Vegas is still very worried that as soon as they finally write off the Patriots, Bill's just going to have a second run. And they had lost so much money on the Patriots out of the Bill Tom era that I'm just convinced that they don't think Bill's as bad as we do now.
I mean, Bill's got to be worth like 4 points in this. Like, because I mean, you got to assume that the Steelers would be favored by like at least 3 or something if you weren't taking whatever Bills' plan would be into
If our coach was
consideration.
Matt Patricia or Joe Judge, we'd be down by probably 7, and we should be.
Whitey, what kind of stats were you going to give us?
I don't really have any stats, but just like put into context what TJ Watt's loss is going to do to us. We caused Burrow, who just went to the Super Bowl. The kid's an absolute stud. Scares the living daylight out of me. He continued to scare the daylight out of me in the fourth quarter. Turned the ball over 5 times, and we still went into overtime and should have lost. They missed an extra point and they missed a field goal in overtime. So that just goes to show you, like, I don't know. One game, I'm already in on the Kenny Pickett. Put him in because Trubisky did nothing. I mean, they had 5 turnovers. They only scored like 16 points after those turnovers. They scored no points on their own. It was all points off the turnovers.
Yeah, I've been on the Kenny Pickett train as well. I just don't see why you would play Trubisky. Like, what happens if they get out to like a 5-0 start? Then you've got to kind of go through that situation where, like what Tua and you did with Ryan Fitzpatrick in Miami a couple of years ago. And I just feel like, Kenny Pickett's your quarterback of the future. I mean, Trubisky is going to be the quarterback of that team for max a year. Figure out what you have. You know that you don't have it in Trubisky. Find out what you have in Pickett. So, and I just feel like Pickett's honestly played better than he has. Now it's only like the preseason and stuff like that, but Pickett looks sharp and he's your number 1 pick.
He did not look good. I mean, I'll tell you, Trubisky looked really good in the preseason. He did not look good yet 2 days ago.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Where has your offensive line gone? For about 3 years, you've lost at the point of attack on the offensive side. Your defensive line is at the end, but they're still very good. And you have Watt on the edge, so it helps. Your offensive line hasn't moved people for a couple of years. How do you plan on fixing that?
Yeah, I think that's our biggest weakness by far is the offensive line. I mean, that's why we pivoted to a mobile quarterback because we knew that we're going to give up a bunch of sacks if we don't have someone that can scramble. Trubisky gives us that, but then Trubisky misses wide open wide receivers, throws a bad pass, not accurate. Kenny Pickett is accurate. The problem, I think this is a conspiracy theory. I think they're holding out Kenny Pickett because they don't want to get him killed. They're thinking that they know their offensive line is bad, so if one of their quarterbacks is going to get hurt because of that offensive line, it'll be Trubisky, not their quarterback of the future. Because their offensive line is bad. It's just not good.
Whitey, we have this on our overreactions or pump the brakes that we're going to do towards the end, but we might as well do it right now. We have Pittsburgh going to the playoffs. Is that an overreaction or a pump the brakes?
Well, pump the brakes because of TJ Watt. I mean, we got some encouraging news. They're thinking he won't need surgery. If he needed surgery, he'd be out for the rest of the year. He got a second and third opinion they're still waiting on. But the general thought is that he will not need surgery. He'll come back this year. Having said that, without TJ Watt, their defense is not the same. I mean, TJ Watt had an interception the other day, 3 tackles for losses, had a sack. He's relentless. He's rushing the quarterback on every single play. Whenever he can't get to the quarterback, he's jumping up and is getting his arms up and is deflecting balls. I mean, he's just an absolute monster. Like without that, you saw what kind of defensive effort we needed to beat Cincinnati.
Yeah,
like we're not going to get 5. We're not going to get 5 turnovers again this year. I doubt it, especially not without Watt. I mean, Minka Fitzpatrick's a baller, but still, we're not going to generate the type of pressure against the quarterback without him. So, without him for like 6 weeks, we may have a chance, but I don't know. It's severely reduced not having him.
Well, yeah, no, I agree with that. Let's talk about some of the other kind of things from this week. We're kind of doing like our, things that week one taught us, and Frank and I were talking about how no teams looked particularly great, but the Bills look like an absolute wagon. I mean, the Bills look like they're 100% for real. They tore apart the Rams like they were nothing. I mean, is there anybody that's not predicting the Bills to kind of represent the AFC in the Super Bowl? It just seems like the Bills are the road has been paved for them.
It's got to be I mean, look at the Chiefs. I mean, it's pretty clear it's the Chiefs and the Bills, and then everyone else, because the Bengals made like a crazy run last year, but after watching them get destroyed by the Steelers' defensive line, I don't think that they have a particularly great offensive line. If you watch Mahomes and Allen, they are never pressured. They have all day, and even if the few amount of times that they get pressured, they can easily scramble out of it and throw someone open on the run. Like, it's Mahomes, Josh Allen, and then there's everyone else. So I think those clearly the two teams in the AFC. I mean, Patrick Mahomes threw 5 touchdowns without Tyreek Hill. Like, they didn't miss a beat.
I know. That was like the Jordan game against Portland, where he's hitting all the threes, just like shrugging, throwing like I mean, he was barely even had any incompletions, no interceptions. I think I was looking at it too. Mahomes has like a ridiculous record in September. I think he's like 12-2 or something in the month of September. He's got like 47 touchdowns in the month of September. I mean, they just start so hot every single year too. And then they go through their period where they kind of have to figure things out and then finish super hot. Well, speaking of kind of somebody that's with some new wide receivers, it seems like Aaron Rodgers really doesn't trust his wide receivers at all. He completed 11 passes to running backs, including 5 of those to A.J. Dillon, the freight train. I did not expect him to catch 5 passes in a game, but it seems like Aaron Rodgers does not have a lot of trust in the wide receivers there. Do you guys look at this as a fallback year for Aaron Rodgers? You know, back-to-back MVPs the last couple of years, but seems like he doesn't trust his wide receivers, and seems like this could be a year where we see a more – now, a pedestrian version of Aaron Rodgers is still a Pro Bowl year for a lot of guys, but it seems like this is a year where we see Aaron Rodgers fall back a bit. What do you guys think?
Go back to the Aaron Rodgers you saw before the last 2 MVP campaigns. That year where he didn't trust anybody and he was just throwing the ball away. And he still had a good touchdown interception ratio, but it was clearly the first time in his whole career he had taken a visible, noticeable step back. They start forcing it to Devontae. He's got 2 MVPs. Let me tell you something. You said, do you think this is a fallback year? It better not be. If you win MVP at 37-8 with the best receiver in the league, he leaves, and then you have a fallback year, wow, it puts those MVPs into a different perspective. They've won 13 games every year Matt LaFleur has been there. If they take a step back, and it's because it was on the receiver when their defense is still supposed to be good, says a lot about Aaron Rodgers and that coach to me.
Yeah, I think Rodgers, he's like a prickly dude that just he's kind of reminds me of Jeter in the documentary. Like, if you get on his bad side, you're done. You're banished forever. I feel like that's how it is with Rodgers. Like, that one kid that dropped that one long play that would have been a touchdown, he didn't even look his way for the rest of the game.
He gave him this death stare.
Yeah, if you burn him once, he's not going to look your way. That's not good for the offense. Like, when you're just going to refuse to throw to someone. What if that someone's open? Everyone else is not open. You're not going to throw it to him. So it's just like, I think he's going to build – it's just going to take some time. He's going to build rapport with these younger receivers. Alan Lazard coming back, I think that should help. At least he's played with them, so he has rapport with them. But, I don't know. They're going to figure it out. I mean, you remember a few years ago when they got blown out the first week and he was like, relax, RELAX, whatever he was doing. And then he ended up getting the MVP that year. So I'm not really worried about him.
Yeah, that was honestly last year, wasn't it? 2 years ago?
Yeah, 2 years ago. But, yeah, it's just going to take some time for him to develop a rapport with these younger guys. And I think they'll be fine. I mean, that division is awful. The Vikings are the only other good team in that division. So, and the NFC is pretty bad, too. I mean, you saw, like, the Cardinals were a legit team last year. The Chiefs beat the crap out of them. So it's like, I don't
Cardinals
know.
defense is horrible.
Before we move away from it, Brady has also gone through patches in his career with the circle of trust Fokker.
I could feel like that was coming from you. I knew that was.
Clear.
I could see.
Other
Yeah.
elite quarterbacks have had that circle of trust problem. I'm just saying it's not specific to just Aaron.
The circle of trust thing is okay, but when you're asking for $50 million and like basically control of the like, you better make it work. You know what I mean?
I agree. As soon as he took top market and then they lost players because of it, he should have put himself on the hot seat. Now, whether he views it that way or not is a whole nother story.
Exactly. When I'm giving you $50 million, you make it work. I could give you, I could give you a couple kids from the 6th round. You better make it work for $50 million. So let's talk real quick about some of the guys that you might see on your waiver wires this week. It seems like there's a couple wide receivers in Washington that are worth taking. Curtis Samuel, Jahan Dotson. Maybe even Carson Wentz if you're looking for a quarterback, threw 4 touchdowns this week, and just seems like they're going to be airing the ball out a lot more than people had anticipated. Maybe with some of the injuries to Brian Robertson or whatever the case may be. Jeff Wilson for the 49ers is someone that you may want to consider in your leagues. Frank, who are you rushing to the waiver wires to try to pick up in your league?
I think Wanderlei. I've never believed in Kadarius Toney. I think that Giants team is going to start throwing it, not all across the yard. I don't think Daniel Jones is that good, but I do think he's a meathead with a cannon arm. So if you just move the pocket and let him get on the outside, he has perimeter options. I love Wanderlei. I do. You already said Jahan Dotson. Like him a lot. The 49ers, they have a rookie who should still be available depending upon when waivers went through and that injury news came through. Those would probably be my 2 favorites. And then Jameson Williams. I didn't want to say too many wide receivers, but Jameson in many, many leagues. I'm in 5 leagues. He's on the waiver wire in 3 of them. Jameson Williams is a problem. He's a problem. He's not as good an offense as Jahan or sadly New York. But Jameson's got a bunch of talent, and Amon St. Ra is also very, very good. They've got 2 of the better, young receiving combinations for a crap offense that we've probably ever seen.
Whitey, is there anyone that you were hoping would be on the waiver wires? Anybody that, had a big week that you weren't anticipating that you're looking at in waivers? Or?
Well, as you're aware, you're in the same league as me, and any running back that's on the waiver wire report, like which running back to pick up, they're always already taken because we're in a 12-team league. We're in a 12-team league, and everyone values running backs far more than anyone else. So I'll give you a few names, the few available players in our league. Pacheco on the Chiefs. Not going to get any passing work, but he got 12 carries, 62 yards. And he was hyped out of camp, too. Like, they were hyping him up. Everyone was worried about Hilliard. But you saw Hilliard, obviously, had 2 touchdowns. He was ridiculous. So that pretty much quieted that. But the other obvious one was Jeff Wilson, which you already mentioned because, what's his name?
Elijah Mitchell. Yeah.
Yeah, Elijah. He's going to be out for like 2 months. So those are the 2 obvious ones. I think there's not many others that excite me. I mean, Duvernay and the Ravens had 2 touchdowns. He looked good, but do you really trust a receiver with Lamar Jackson, who's going to hand the ball off and scramble like half the game, and then throw to Mark Andrews the only times he throws the ball? So,
is Jontrell Hilliard a guy that you guys are looking at all? Potentially backing up.
Yeah, I was looking at him.
Okay.
He was my claim this week.
What's that?
He was my claim this week.
I just don't know how much work that guy will actually get. I mean, he always ends up just getting like 200 yards. Like, I just feel like at some point you're just giving all the carries to Derrick Henry. Like, they may have given him more work this week, but it just
Hilliard is basically like Hines on the Colts. They have 2 stud, like best in the league running backs that they're sharing carries with, but they exclusively operate in the passing. So they'll get like 3 rushes, but they'll get like 5 catches every game.
It's so hard to play those guys.
It's hard, but I mean, I'm screwed. I drafted Cam Akers. He wasn't even in the passing game.
Darrell Henderson is a guy that we may mention for waivers for some people that, obviously not our league, but Darrell Henderson, I think, is even a guy that potentially was on waivers.
Well, clearly, because I don't know what the hell's going on, but I mean, everyone said that Akers would be the bell cow, and he gets 6 carries. I mean, I was heated. So I don't know. What about Rex Burkhead?
Yeah, I mean, he got like 17 carries the other day, didn't he, or something?
I drafted the rookie on the Texans. He got out-carried by Rex Burkhead, and Burkhead was more productive in the passing game. I
don't understand that at all. Why are you giving carries to Rex Burkhead?
I don't know. I think maybe it's the first game of the year. The kid's a rookie. Maybe he didn't get enough run in the preseason. I don't know. I'm praying that he gets more work because that was my first pick in our keeper league.
I had Rex Burkhead on my team last year. I wanted to shoot myself, so I don't know if I'm actually going to pick up. I don't think Rex Burkhead is actually going to be worth. Can you picture yourself actually playing Rex Burkhead in a game? I guess is what I'm saying.
No.
It's hard to put yourself in those shoes. Well, hey, that is going to do it for us. We're at 9:01. So, Whitey, appreciate you jumping on. Appreciate everyone for tuning in. Week 2 this week. Hopefully your teams win, and we'll see you next week, Tuesday, same time, same place. Talk to you then.